Well, it's March 1st. How was February? Because I'm a Welshman by birth. I come from Wales originally, so some of you may know, and so I was reminded this morning that it's St. David's Day in Wales. It's like the national day. It's called St. David's Day on March 1st in Wales. If I was being traditional, I would have either a daffodil or a leek pinned to my shirt. They would do that. It used to be in Wales that it would be more popular and traditional for it to be the leek, but over time, naturally, the daffodil became a little bit more popular to have. But I didn't do that today. I should have thought ahead. But I did just look up a couple of things around Saint David, the patron saint of Wales, and a couple of qualities he was known for because he was my namesake. You know, a lot of people who are called David in Wales are named for Welsh David. So just a couple of notes because I think this is interesting in terms of our practice. He was celebrated for asceticism and simplicity. Lived an austere lifestyle. Was vegetarian. Just ate bread, vegetables, and drank water. His nickname was David the water drinker. I have difficulty with the pronunciation of the word water. You may notice. You know, sometimes I'll ask for that at a drive-through and say, "Can I get a water?" And no one ever knows what that means. Somebody once said, "I'm sorry, sir, nobody has handed a wallet in." You know, so anyway, David the water drinker developed a monastic order that emphasized hard work, contemplation, and self-discipline. Right? It sort of reminds me of the Yokoji years. Right? It's similar in that way. Preached humility and compassion. Lived without personal comfort or status. Lived on the same as the monks. Nothing different for being the leader. And famous last words ascribed to him were, "Be joyful, keep faith, and do the little things." So that's sweet. Be joyful, keep faith, and do little things. Or I'm going to try out my Welsh. Gwynech y pethau basian. That's it. Be joyful, keep faith, do the little things, which became a beloved Welsh motto. So, interesting corollary though for our community. You know, we look back to the first few centuries AD, where this is drawn from. We had people who were devoted to, in that case, a religious practice. You know, in this case, perhaps more of a spiritual practice. However we pass that out, but still a community that gathers together in order to concentrate on what fosters the most benefit for us as human beings, and brings to the front what is most important in a human life, and also is separated somewhat from the regular world, so to speak. Right? When we look into the world then and the world now, we see that the human realm is one of violence and disharmony, for the most part. Not all, but, well, it's certainly very apparent, you know, in coming here today, as with everything what is the crisis this week, right? I realized the last time that I visited, there was a crisis as just unfolding. And then I realized, wait, it's not about you, Jokai. There's a crisis every week, whether you got a ICD or not, right? There's something all of the time. We seem to be unfortunately, in an exponential time for that. And so, how important it is to have a genuine refuge of community. in this case, a sangha, a place where people can gather in peacefulness, a place where people can be heard, feel safe, connect, find support, offer their support. My feeling is, as we advance with everything that's going on in many different areas, the importance of human connection. I see you and you see me, right? At ICD, that could be a little could be a good little tagline. All right, put a pin in that, right? But the importance of being able to see one another and to really to be able to connect in this physical, immediate way is of increasing scarcity and increasing value. So we can't underestimate just this opportunity to have a place, have this wonderful place, right, which is changing shape, and the conditions change, and we're making adjustments and refinements in order to try and improve, so we can run things better, be of more benefit, and have that door be open, the invitation to be open, to come, to sit together, to be present together. I know we just finished the Eightfold Path, and I think yesterday Mary was here for a half day too. So grateful for everything that's being taught, being learned, being shared. Today it's the kind of open topic, and the one that comes to me most naturally is this, something that I've brought up a few times, and bring up again today, but perhaps maybe hopefully from a little bit of a different angle, and that is the 3 tenets of Zen peacemaking. There's 3 tenets of Zen peacemaking: not knowing, bearing witness, loving action. Not knowing, bearing witness, loving action. I recently was at a day-long, I gave a class on the Zen Buddhist, what's called the 3 pure precepts, the most basic, fundamental guidelines, precepts, principles by which to live an upright life, an upright, aware, awake, connected, do our best life, which everyone here is involved in. Right? Those 3 pure precepts are cease from harm, cease harmful actions, cease from harm. And the second is do good. And the third one, do good for others. Very, very basic organizing principles for human beings. Now, and these can track very nicely with the 3 tenets of Zen peacemaking. In fact, Bernie Glassman, who developed these, he was the first successor of Maizumi Roshi. And so a Dharma brother of my teacher, like my sort of grandfather in the Dharma is Maizumi Roshi, the founder of Yokoji and one of the principal teachers in bringing Zen Buddhism to Western Hemisphere. And so his first successor, Bernie, lived as a monk in the kind of style of St. David here, like austere, hard work, disciplined, right? But then upon, gaining real, spiritual maturity and having the empowerment to interpret his realization and the Dharma in the way that he felt most fitting, decided to put the robes down and go out into the world. And his particular calling was in social activism, which still continues today, and in setting up vehicles, organizations that would be a legacy that would take that on beyond his lifetime. And a core teaching that he developed there was these 3 tenets, ways to engage in the world. And I think that's a very perhaps that's the most pertinent question that's coming up that I hear from people. It's like, how do we meet the world as it is? Right? Oh, that's coming up over and over again in increasing volume. Like, how do we live? How do we meet the world as it is? And so in these 3 tenets, which is an attempt to work with that question or with that living koan, because that really is a koan. It doesn't invite a straightforward or easy response. It's complicated on one level and very simple on another level. In Bernie's 3 tenets, then the beginning is not knowing. To not know. Right? I'm just going to read how these were written. In the day of reflection, so this is when taking on these 3 tenets. We commit ourselves to not knowing, the source of all manifestations, and seeing all manifestations as the teachings of not knowing. We commit ourselves to bearing witness, by allowing ourselves to be touched by the joys and pains of the universe. We invite all hungry spirits into the mandala of our practice and commit our energy and our love to the healing of myself, the earth, humanity, and all creations. That's okay. So that's those 3 together. That always... I always have a little voice that says, I'm not sure about that part, but it says, I invite all hungry spirits into the mandala of my practice. I'm just like, well, that's quite something to do. But if you take the first one, not knowing, right, which I'm tracking with the first Zen precept of cease from harm. It's as human beings, we cling very much to knowing. Of course, we like to know. We want to know what's going on, quite naturally. Right? But one of the dark sides of knowing is certainty. Establishing certainty, like we know for sure. Right? So perhaps the most straightforward lens to look at this is the practice that we were just all involved in, the practice of upright sitting in meditation. That in itself is consistent with not knowing and ceasing from harm. Right? It's not going into a situation with some predefined ideas around what it is. Every situation, even the most simple one, is complex and unfixed and changing. That's the root of our sensory experience of the world. Just to sit down here for 30 minutes, if we, before we said, well, what's going to happen in the next 30 minutes when I sit? And we could take a few notes. But it would never track the reality of that experience. We would never know how many cars were passing by on the street, whether somebody had forgotten to turn the phone on or not, whether somebody would move a chair or leave early. We'd never know the content of the thoughts that are about to arise in our mind and pass through. We wouldn't know if we would cling to them or not. We wouldn't know if we would drift into forgetfulness of our awareness practice and start to fall into thinking about this and that. We'd have an idea, but it wouldn't match. And that's true for just sitting in a chair, not moving and not thinking about anything. And how much more complex is every activity that takes place during the day. Like living in our chaotic lives with a veritable fire hose of information being poured through our devices at us all day. Right? So this basis of not knowing, though, is not a passive experience and not a spiritual bypass. It's not to avoid, right? But it is a first step. First is, okay, before going in, I had to like redo my first aid training fairly recently, well, this is like in this past year when I was still at Yokoji, and I thought, well, that'd be good to have. It's good to refresh those skills. And they have you do those things where you break into little groups, which I was like, oh no, don't make me do things. Like, we break into those little groups, and it's like somebody, is lying down, kind of pretending to be injured, or like fell off a ladder or electrocuted or some terrible fate, and then you have to go in and mind, and the first thing you said was, what? Stop, assess the scene. Right? It's like, don't go in there. Like, if you grab them, you might get electrocuted. You don't know. Don't move them. You don't know what's going to happen. It's like the basis of that intervention is not knowing. First, do no harm. Just look. See. Notice. That's a basis of Zazen. That's a basis of Zen sitting and meditation. Is to activate that present awareness that we are, to see this as always new, when the human aspect of us is discounting everything that looks old and saying, oh, I know what that is. I know what that is. And pushing those things out and then reaching for the next interesting thing. Right? But sitting is being interested in the most mundane, because mundane is a value judgment. And it's being deeply interested in just the rising and falling of breath, and the sounds of the street, and the feeling of the air. And in so doing, we cease from harm, and we're living as the present experience of not knowing. But not knowing as a blank emptiness, not knowing as this is new all the time. This is changing in the realm of, in the appearance of form. The form, the content is always changing, but something is not changing, has never changed, isn't moving, is ageless, nameless. That's this root of awareness and presence that we all are, that we're experiencing now. And to sit in that realization and to let the mind unspool in, whatever's going through the process, let the tape play, but to sit in a place of presence that allows it all, declaring that unilateral peace with the world as it is, with this one as it is. And not to say you allow the world to be what it is. Well, what about? No, we get into that, but first the standpoint is this is as it is. And if we can align with this as it is, or be this as it is, then we always have a refuge and a point of contact to which to return. We can take mindful breaths, step back, sit down, or be standing up, doesn't matter. But we know the place of refuge, a place to come back to. This not knowing, cease from harm, beginner's mind, to come back to the beginning. From here, we go to bearing witness. To bear witness, he says, to the joys and the pain of the universe, to bear witness to that, which I think tracks elegantly with do good. How does that work, though? How is bearing witness doing good? When we look into my goodness, I have to pause before I say it. When you look at the way the world is, how do you bear witness to that? The onslaught and the horror. Right? But that's our life. This is our life. This is the world. This is our life. But from a place of presence and not knowing, from a place of confidence and stillness, not to shy away from is to bear witness. Not to go to where's safe is in how we understand something is to bear witness. Right? To go into the territory that is difficult to refuse to turn away. And that's challenging to each one of us. We all have the places that we push up against there. You know, whether that's however that's defined for each one of us uniquely. But to bear witness to it all, we have to push past or go past or not drop off or let go of the limitations of our opinions and beliefs. You know, I like the quote that says, I have strong opinions lightly held. Strong opinions lightly held. True, you know, because I believe things and have opinions and beliefs. But then they may turn out to be wrong, and then I have to adjust and let them go and be flexible. So bearing witness is that allowing and then seeing it as deeply as possible. And that also requires an allowing of a multiplicity of perspective, which is very different, very difficult, and very challenging. But in so doing, in stretching beyond our defined limitations, you know, meeting the world as it is, we cease from harm, practice good, and now we come to the third one, the loving action, or do good from others. When we practice awakening, right, that's what it is to sit. It's straightforwardly to be fully awake and alive and intimate with the self, which is the wholeness of this environment, without gap or edge, to be that way. When we do so, then life is meeting us clearly, right? This is the cultivation of presence when we sit. The mind is like a mirror, which is often, but the mirror gets obscured and fogged up with the me-I story and the world story. And we find ourselves looking through a glass darkly. But then with sitting, as that mirror, you know, starts to unfog, right? We sit in and the mirror starts to clean, and then we're reflecting the world is coming to meet us, and we're reflecting back. And from that place of meeting in presence, which is as straightforward as I see you, you see me, I'm not going to say it, right? Then what is appropriate? The appropriate response can come forward, or there's much more potentiality and probability for that to come forward, because we're meeting the world from a place of aliveness and intimacy and connection. And we can see what's needed. We can see our task and what to do that's coming from the heart and coming from the intuition and the head, and all of those things in coming into correct context, meeting the world then. So much more powerful than meeting it from a kind of a narrow, defined, fixed picture of the world and how it does or does not conform to my expectations or desires. So just cease from harm, do good, and then do good for others. And this is the work. And then how do we do that? We're living in a very different time than St. David that I brought up earlier for March 1st. You know, but if we look at I love these words at the end, his final words, be joyful. You know, appreciate that. Yeah, this is our life. Enjoy, be joyful as much as we can. That's what you are is what you transmit. If we can be joyful, then we share joy. That's a good thing. Be joyful. Keep faith. Different context for him. Keep faith. You know how that would be interpreted. But meditation is faith. It's not faith in something or someone. It is a realization of faith. You know, in Zen or in the sort of Zen tradition, you'd say it is faith in our original enlightenment, our original awake nature. Be joyful, keep faith, and do the little things. That was true then, but that's also true now. Most of our day, although we have the onslaught of the whole world coming through our devices, is involved in doing the little things around us. with family, friends, work colleagues, whether it's, you know, over Zoom or whether it's like in the office or wherever we may be. Every day, an infinite number of small things. But those small things are all potent and important. There's an old Zen saying that said, matters of great concern should be taken lightly. And another Zen master added, matters of small concern should be taken seriously. Right? Because often those attitudes of what's big and what's small are in our mind. So more and more this is coming up in terms of, okay, what's this practice for? You know, like how do we engage it? You know, and from a place in deep confidence that everyone in the sangha and the community is really has that call and the motivation to be the very best that they can be in terms of, you know, the depth of their humanity. You know, everyone is a unique gift to the world. And through our practice, that's what we really unlock. The capacity, the deep capacity to be exactly ourselves as we are. How wonderfully profound that is. To be exactly who we are. And to find that that one has endless purpose and opportunity for contribution to a difficult world. On the path of peace. On the path of love. On the path of loving action. I'd like to pause there and invite some space for question, for comment. I'm going to put Ian's going forth our dedication in the chat for. And this is a beautiful thing that he wrote, and a good, you know, not that he needs my validation, but okay. But just before we close this, I'd like to thank you so much. Yeah, thank you. And I'll read going forth. Going forth into this world, so in need of light, may I bring all the kindness and wisdom I embody to each being and each situation that I meet. May the power of my practice today strengthen my resolve to be an agent of peace and justice in this world. Going forth together into this world, so in need of light, may we together bring all the kindness and wisdom we embody to each being and each situation that we meet. May the power of our practice today strengthen our resolve to be agents of peace and justice in this world. We dedicate our practice for the liberation of all beings, the great, the small, the wise, the ignorant, the powerful and the powerless. May all beings be liberated from sorrow and loss, hatred and injustice, scarcity and want, and every form of suffering. May our practice today be a prayer for peace, and may it benefit all beings without exception. Thank you everyone joining online.